Hello and welcome to We Will Manage, the podcast exploring the weird and wonderful world of work. We are two young professionals figuring out our careers one conversation at a time. Today, we're talking about management and leadership.
So stick around to learn about how working your people less could benefit your project more, whether empathy equals weakness, and what all good leaders have in common. Cheers.
Cheers.
So I have a glass of orange juice
Orange juice.
in a wine glass.
In a wine
Because sometimes
glass.
I like to feel fancy.
I mean, why not? We don't need excuses to feel fancy. We can just feel fancy.
Wine glass
I'm here
shouldn't
for
be limited to wine. Wine glass is a very nice recipient to drink out of, I find.
Yeah, and the whole point of them is so that you don't make the liquid warm. So why would you want warm juice?
Exactly. So today we're talking management. And when I say management, it's kind of a mix between management and leadership, the difference between the two and how both can be the same thing. So this is a subject that has been on my mind a lot recently. For context, I'm currently in the midst of founding a company. Currently, I don't have any employees, let's say, but it's something that I look to in the future. I imagine that someday I will have a team to manage. And also I do project management. So I manage a research team, for example. I'm not their direct manager, but I do manage the project in the relationship between the university lab and the company. So I do have a bit of a manager role in that. But it's mainly on the side of the founding the company that it's kind of been on my mind. I've been having to deal with situations, and when you're dealing with a situation on the moment, it's easy to think, okay, this isn't just now, but what could this be like in the future? And what's the person that I'm learning to be and everything. So this subject hits home right now. So I think I thought it would be the best time to talk about it.
Yeah.
So the idea is to talk a little bit about management and leadership, in and out. I have so many topics that I would love to cover, but I've tried to keep it simple, and we can kind of go into more of like office dynamics in another episode.
Yeah. It would also be interesting from this episode what people can let us know that they'd be interested in us diving deeper into.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there'll be follow-up episodes for sure on this kind of stuff.
And my idea is that any topic on my list that we don't cover, I'll write down for a future episode. And then So I wanted to start actually by asking you, because I don't currently have any employees, but big step in your recent career has been employing someone for the first time. And so you are now a direct manager. You're an employer. I think this is very exciting. And I would love to hear a bit about your management style, as in how you deal with, targets and projects and organizing somebody else. What that looks like.
Yeah. Right. So I got my first employee in September of 2024. So it hasn't been long, and I was very sure that, so for me, hiring someone came down to being able to free up more time to do what I actually wanted to do, be able to, I think the next person I would hire would probably kind of be like an admin person. It didn't feel like enough. I mean, I don't know. That's very subjective, but it didn't feel like it was enough kind of admin stuff for me to be able to like say, I'm going to get someone else to do this, So who I did hire was, it was for social media, because it's not something that I ever set out to do, but it's something that it just kind of naturally comes at the end of a branding process or website design, whatever. We always end the process with setting up someone's social media for them, or if they already have one, maybe cleaning it up and readjusting it to the new branding that we've done, doing a few posts to like get them on the right track, and then kind of just like, push them out into the world. And they will very often turn around and say, oh, but can't you just do this for us? Because we don't have the time, we don't have the creativity, we don't have whatever. And it's something that as an entrepreneur, it's really good work in the way that it's consistent. It's a monthly thing. So it's not just a one-off project. So it was something that I always felt like I had to say yes to, but I never enjoyed. It's not something that I ever was like, oh, I'd love to do social media management one day. So I was very aware of the fact that as soon as I can, I'm going to hire someone to take care of social media. So when I hired someone, her role inside of the studio was the head of social media department. So even though she works for me and for the studio, she is very much in charge of her own thing. And when I was going to do it, it was lots of different things were happening in my life. And I wanted to do it to be able to free up more time for the projects I wanted to work on and for personal stuff that was happening. I was going off in the van to travel around Europe. But because I was going to be going off, I also didn't have too much time we talked about this a little bit in our last episode when we were talking about how hiring, how we often, we think it's so much work to hire someone that if you know someone that you think is good for the job, you'll probably just do that. And that was totally the case with me. I had someone in mind that I had gone to university with, and her dream role was social media management. And I said to her very clearly, if you are interested in this position, I would love for you to come and work with me. If you're not, I'm probably not going to do this right now because I don't think I can. I was very sure that I wanted that person to feel like they had creative control over the projects that they would be doing, and that I didn't want to have to micromanage someone. I felt like that was defeating the purpose. I wanted them to be able to have enough confidence and, just know what they were doing enough that they could check in with me at any point, but I didn't have to be worried if things were getting done, if things were being done the right way, which I've mentioned before, huge perfectionist. And when she started working for me, it was still Alba Harden. It wasn't Cosa Studio. So it was literally my name on the line. So you can't just hire anyone and then they do a terrible job. And then you're the one, they just leave, you fire them, whatever. And then you're stuck with that bad review. So yeah, I said to her very clearly, if you want to do this, I know that we work really well together because we've worked together at university. I know that your standards are as high as mine. I know that I won't have to be worried with you. If you want to do it, the job's yours. If you don't, I will, when I have more time, train someone to do things in a way that, because it's very difficult coming into a role that you don't know the person, you don't know the company. It takes a lot of time to learn. When we take on a new client, we always say to them, when it's something that's going to be like social media, the first month is for us to get to know you so that when we do start creating content on your behalf, it feels like you're doing it, not that someone external's come in and done it. And getting to know someone and a company isn't easy or quick. So yeah, I if it wasn't her, obviously she had to learn a lot as well, but she already knew me. She'd already been up to date with what I'd be doing work-wise. It was someone who I had a lot of contact with. So if I said to her, this needs to be done like this, I knew she was going to understand me, because that's also communication. If people communicate in different ways. So a whole lot of things that I just knew it was going to be so much easier. She said yes. And she has been a godsend. Like I have been able to take on so many clients because of her, because social media does take up a lot of time. So it's something that, whole other thing. But yeah. And then when it comes to organizing, I already used this for myself, but then when she joined the studio, it was a whole other thing. Okay, now we've got to find a way to keep on track of like clients, and especially as there were some clients that were of the studio, but basically she would be 100% dealing with them because it was just social media and whatever. We have to find a way to, coordinate all of that. And we use Milanote, which I love, and I tell anyone who will listen about it. And there I will set the tasks for the month, break them down in weeks, and there's checklists, to-do lists, all sorts where she can check in and and have a kind of a meeting point where she can see what I'm doing, I can see what she's doing, and it's all very just clear, open. And in that same space, we also have our goals for the month for the studio and kind of the things that she needs to do to get to those goals, the things I need to do to get to those goals, things that are just things that need to get done, whoever has time to do them. And yeah, that's kind of how we've been working.
So much to dive into. I'm so curious. I feel like I could talk about this for hours. So this is a work relationship that obviously started based on a lot of trust. So you have a lot of trust in this person, and you trust that if you ask her to do something in a way, she's going to get that done, and you don't feel like you necessarily have to be checking in. So do you come together to establish tasks that have to be done, or do you establish the tasks yourself and then assign them?
It depends. We're obviously still working things out as it's so new to me. And that was also something that I said to her, was that I felt really, I'd rather it be someone like her, because it was my first time managing someone. So I would much rather it be someone who I know, who can say to me like, the way you're doing this just doesn't make sense to anybody but, you know, you and your brain or whatever. So it was really important for her to give me that feedback as well. And we're still working things out, really. It depends. It kind of depends how we get the clients and stuff like that. Normally what we do as people, as it is so recent that it is Costa Studio and there's 2 of us now, people expect me. So I will always be the first point of contact. The first meeting will normally be just me. And then from there, depending on what they're doing, they sometimes meet Claudia. They sometimes don't meet her. And then if it is something that she's going to be taking over, she'll then join all the meetings. And then I'm always there where people can kind of refer back to me or have, you know, they'll want me to have the final say on things, which I completely get.
Because people build up this trust in you and your brand and your name.
Exactly.
So it's good to keep that trust with your clients.
Yeah. Or because it completely depends on the client. Like there's one that, for example, I wouldn't feel comfortable with one of our clients for just my employee to go and do the content creation hours, because I know that they expect me to be there too. And that's fine. That's the only bit of social media that I enjoy. The ideas and the creating the things, I love it. You know, so I don't mind. It's not necessarily my job, and it's where Claudia would pick up more slack if I have big branding projects on at the same time. But if it is at a time when I have less, because her work is a lot more constant. She has so many things to do a week. Depends on, sometimes I have 3 clients that I'm doing branding and website and whatever. And other weeks I've just finished 2 projects and I'm maybe going to be starting one next week. So there's a lot of like admin and like finishing things up, but it's a lot less time. So it really, my time does really depend a lot. And also just the time of the month. If it's the beginning of the month, clients always have lots of questions about what we're going to be doing that month. And that includes kind of the ones that she takes care of more, because it's something that she will prepare all the presentations to show them at the end of each month, for example, of like analytics and all that. But they want me to be present at those meetings as well, and for me to give my feedback. So it's interesting. And sometimes we'll sit down before talking to a client and she'll tell me, okay, so this is what we've done. This is how it's gone. This is how, you know, and then it's also that point of during those meetings will give my opinion, my thoughts, but I will always bring it back to her and say, you know, she's the one that's doing these things. And like Claudia has informed me, these posts have been doing well because of this, this, and this. And then they can feel like there's communication between us as well, but then know that she's doing most of the work. You know, it's a balance. And like I say, we're still learning a lot, but it's really fun. It's really fun. And it's also really nice to have someone to talk about about projects as well.
You're not working on your own anymore.
Yeah. And with things like pricing, like when we are going to get a new client, I'll be able to send her the pricing options that we're going to send the clients and say, what do you think about this? Do you think that we're, you know, because someone said to me like, and why do you even tell her how much the clients are paying you? I'm like, because obviously she's got a fixed wage. I depend what I earn depending on our clients. And they're like, you know, aren't you worried that she's going to ask for
Compensation. Or
Not
extras,
compensation, but
bonus.
like a raise is what I was looking for. She's going to ask for a raise if she knows how much, I'm like, but no. And if it were to ever get to the point where she's working more hours, then she would get a raise, It's not, I rather that she, it's something to talk about, especially in those kind of difficult points that you can work as a team. I know something we're going to talk about in the future is working with friends and family. So there's always that as well. I think we've had to kind of talk about that when we've gone into the podcast and like, where does our personal relationship end and where does our professional one? Yeah, it's that I'm very much looking forward to that because it's very interesting and I've worked a lot with friends and family and it can lead to awkward moments if you're not careful. But yeah, our number one thing is if something bothers either of us, you just come out and say it. And why, like it could even be like, this has bothered me, but I know it's because I'm having a really off day and I just going to take 24 hours to just, whatever, work through it.
That kind of nicely segues to a second part of the question is, first of all, do you feel like a manager? Did you just see that fly?
No.
Fly. Right in front of the camera. Sorry.
I literally, when you said that, I felt like looking behind me. I was like, where? And then I realized you were talking about you on your screen.
Anyway, so yeah, you have your first employee and it is a relationship that's based on a lot of trust and you do work quite parallel. It's not necessarily a vertical situation.
Yeah.
But do you feel like you do manage this person?
Yeah, I think especially in the way that at the end of the day, the responsibility is always mine. That's where I very often feel like this is my, kind of like I'm the one, not in charge because just thinking about it like that.
But
like,
you're
no,
the one that takes the risk. You're the
that
one
takes the risk,
and
that has the final say, that makes the decisions that, like I said before, if something goes wrong, okay, now it's Costa Studio, but it's still Costa Studio by Alba Harden. If something goes wrong, it's still my livelihood. She can find a job somewhere else. My business might not recover. So there is always that feeling. But yeah, I think so.
I love hearing about this. Like this is a part of your job that I've obviously never seen you, and it's so cool to hear about this. In more detail.
It's cool to talk about.
So, to kind of come back to my perspective on the subject, like I said, I'm going into this perspective of I would like to become a manager and a leader. In the future, if I do have a team, I have been quite clear with my co-founder that I would rather be in charge of the human side of things and of the people below us, or that's not a nice way to say it, but the people that we're responsible for and that are helping us get towards our objectives. I would like to take that role. And it is something that I do feel quite passionate about, is becoming a good manager. And therefore, I think that equates to becoming a leader.
Yeah. I actually wanted to ask you about that because now you are a project manager. So you do manage, but projects. Like how do you see the difference between managing projects and managing people?
I mean, it actually comes down to very similar concepts because when you're managing a project, you're also managing people. I mean, it's a project that it's not computers that are doing it, or people that are doing it. And I've already come up against situations, in fact, which is one of these situations is what sparked this kind of questioning of my management skills and my leading skills. Is I have been in a situation where I am project manager, so it's my responsibility that tasks get done. And for tasks to get done, people need to be in good situations. They need to have all the tools they need to get that task done. They need to be in a good working condition. They need the budget. They need, so you're managing things around people getting things done. And that has included recently, I managed a bit of a confrontation. And obviously that's a big thing in being a manager, is you need to know how to act in that situation, and you need to know how to stay calm and lead with a bit of, you need to know how to deal with that, and you need to be able
and be
to
able
deal with
to
that
like
emotionally.
Yeah, and thinking on your feet, because I feel like people turn for you for questions, for answers
Yeah.
with their questions, and they, they can ask you, and why is this like this? And you have to be able to just, very calmly and in a composed way, be able to explain everything. And it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, a big part of becoming a good manager is taking responsibility. So I'm managing this project. If somebody doesn't get a task done, I can't blame that on them. Like I can try and make their conditions better, or I can figure out that situation, what has led to that. But at the end of the day, I'm the person that needs to make sure that these things are getting done. And I think that's a big part in becoming a good manager, is taking responsibility for the success, but also for the issues and the challenges. So I can't blame that on the people that I'm managing, or blame that on the people that are supposed to get that task done. So some things that, in life in general, I've generally come to the conclusion that I do feel like I'm a natural leader. What do I mean by this? Without sounding a bit up myself, in general in life, personal life, and education, and coming into the working world, I've always naturally fallen into a position where people look to me for organizing that trip, or answering that question, or representing a group of people. That has often been the case for me, especially as soon as I got into the working world. My first working experience was at a startup, and I was in the research team, and I very quickly became the what do you call it? I only find the word in French. The person that talks for the team.
The representative? No, No, I know what you mean.
Don't speak more than one language, guys. It's not good. It's not good for the brain.
Representative. I think if people will understand from that what we mean.
So I very quickly started being invited into meetings to represent the scientific team, even though I'd been there for the least amount of time. So I do feel like in life, I have quickly taken up positions of being a bit of a leader.
I think that almost can lead back to like when we were at school. I feel like, and I wonder because I feel exactly the same. And I don't know if it comes because we both have a lot of initiative. So maybe we are just the first ones to like get up and be like, okay, this needs to be sorted. We're both very organized.
I think we're both very proactive. We have a lot of initiative, like you say, and we take things seriously. We care about things. Yeah, when we care about something, we will stand up for it, and we will. We believe in our ideas and in what we can bring to that project or to that trip or to that group of people. We're likely to speak up with our ideas and with our.
Do you remember when we were in our last or second to last year? Possibly second to last year, and in secondary school, and we took our class, I think it might have even been our whole year, I'm not sure, to this like World Peace Day event that only people up until the second year of secondary, so like 4 years younger than us, would get to go to, because older years were just too busy or whatever they would say. And we were like, no, this is an important issue. We are going to find the time to get everybody, that even people who don't like to dance, they're going to learn a dance to this song that you have proposed, and we will send this message, and we will do this. And the teacher was like, okay.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful example.
Yeah. And we did, and people were like, why did they get to go, and like we didn't get to go? And the teacher was like, they wanted to, and they made it happen.
Yeah. Oh, that's the number one, in my opinion, the number one characteristic of an entrepreneur or somebody that's leading companies is it's not the smartest person, it's not the genius, it's the person that gets things done. That you have an idea and you have it. Anyway, it's off
and you
topic,
follow through. Yes.
I think that's the kind of person that can become a good leader. So, like I say, I think I've felt up until now in life that I have had a tendency to become a bit of a natural leader. And my question is now, okay, if I am a natural leader, am I a naturally good one? And that's kind of what's been going on in my brain. So my main, the things I feel less confident in is dealing with confrontation. I haven't been up against confrontation in my life at all. Like I have never had siblings to fight with. I have a big brother, but he's a lot older than me, and
He's big.
Yeah, he's big. When I was born, he was already, I think he was 25. He had his life. He was more like an uncle. And I've grown up and he's now more like a sibling, but he's not somebody that I would bicker with when I was a kid. My parents were always very serene, and if I got told off, it was more with a whisper than anything else. And I've never been up against confrontation, and I really struggle with it. And I think this can play in my favor and also against me. I'm having to become more resilient to external situations. I'm very empathetic.
Yeah.
I feel.
I think that does
emotions.
make a good leader, though.
I think so
it's
too.
a good quality. It can be hard for the person, and I, as an empathetic person, I'm there with you, because I also we want to do an episode that kind of goes into this kind of stuff. I don't fully go into it, but I am a Libra. And the whole thing of Libra is the thing of the scales. And I totally feel that, because a trait of Libras is that you can see both sides, and then that can make it good when you're trying to find balance and trying to be that kind of in-between person in an argument or whatever. But it can also be really hard because, we talked about this. Where does you being able to see both sides and your opinion and what you believe and what you actually want to fight for, how do you balance that out? And it can be so difficult.
Absolutely.
But I think it's how you are a good leader, because it's how you can put yourself in the position of the people that you are leading, and how they will trust you because you can see them. You can see them and their positions and their struggles and their problems and whatever. And you will be someone that won't, like you were saying before, place blame and just say, you should have done this better. You can say, no, I can see that you didn't do X, Y, and Z because of this, and this.
So it's you actually said it perfectly, and that was I say was because I feel like in the past few days I've kind of come to terms with it. So I was struggling a lot with this balance, like you say, and I'm actually in a particular situation, which is I'm halfway between the academic world, so researchers, and the business world, people that turn technology into products and sell them. These two worlds have they have objectives that are nothing to do with one another. Again, we can go into this for a long time, but it's really difficult to get them seeing the same objective.
Yeah. Which is why people like you are so important, because it's very necessary that they see the same objective.
Exactly.
Or at least, to be able to work together. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I truly, truly believe that the research and the really qualitative work that's done in labs with very knowledgeable people can produce things that then if we bring that into the real world, that's where we're going to have an impact. That's where we can make a difference. But trying to get these two worlds speaking the same language is very difficult. So you have two very opposite points of view. So the research world is a lot about precision, and you take the time you need to get the answers you need to be able to be 100% sure that what you are providing is the best solution. The business world is all about speed
and demand, and
exactly. So getting these two on one same page is very, very difficult. And the problem is I see and I understand both sides. And then I was feeling a bit overwhelmed because I felt like I didn't have an opinion. Because I understand your side. I understand your side. Your two sides contradict. So how can I understand both? And where's my opinion? What am I feeling? What am I defending here? And I was feeling that maybe I was overly empathetic and started feeling a bit influential.
Yeah.
Like maybe I was taking in simply what people were saying without putting my little barrier of, I hear what you're saying, but
yeah.
and this is how we're going to work this out. And I've come to terms with the fact that that comes a lot with confidence. You need to be confident in what you know.
Yeah.
And you need to be confident in, you make a decision in what you think is best for that project. So I'm working on a sustainable product, so I can be proud of that. I just need to decide in what's the best for that project, what's the direction we're going in, and then lead that way. So if you're confident in yourself and what the best thing is for the project, you can hear both sides and then try and extract and explain to either
and make
of
an
them.
informed decision. I think it's really important how you're saying is that you do take on what people are saying and kind of assess that situation. My mum works with horses, and one of her like idols, he says, it all depends. It all depends. There is no way to do something with a horse that you can say, this is the way to do this, because it depends on the horse. It depends on their background. It depends on the current situation. It depends on the person that's dealing with the horse. It depends on so many things. You can't just say, this is the way to deal with this problem. From experience, from learning what you're saying, taking on what one team is telling you, what the other team is telling you, what you know from your experience, what you know about this project, you can make an informed decision that you believe is the best, and then stand behind it. And you're going to learn just because you've said, this is the decision I've made now, here, today, for this project. 20 years down the line, you're in a similar situation. You're like, no, we're going to go down a different way. And it could just be because the market's changed. So now, it's no longer, so it's just about being able to adapt and listen and then make decisions, I think is so important.
Yeah, I think, being able to understand other people's points of view, it not only does that allow you to make an informed decision, like you say, but it also allows you to have a constructive conversation with that person. So if you are listening to somebody's opinion, they're not lying to you. They're giving you, as long as they have the intentions of the project, and that's, as a manager, as a leader, that's your responsibility. You need to make sure that the people that are working for you want the same thing as you. You need to have them invested in the objective. So the opinion they're giving you it's in their vision, in their mind, what is the best for that. And if you understand their point of view, you're going to be able to have a lot more of a constructive conversation into, I hear that, but I need to explain this that you're maybe not seeing, or that maybe you're not understanding because of your point of view, because of your background.
And something that will make your job a lot easier is if they trust you as a leader. If they can tell you, know that you're listening to them, so that when you make a decision, they understand that it's in their best interest, because they trust you as a leader, and they trust that the decision you're making is the best because of X, Y, and Z. And I think that's something that's so important when you're talking about being a manager, about being a leader, is making sure that the people you're working with, I think even if you are just in a team, but that there's trust. I think that's just so important. And I think that it just makes everyone's life easier, because in most cases, those kind of situations, there isn't a right or wrong, and whoever has the final say has the final say, and that's just it, and that's how it's going to go. There's just it might be the wrong decision, but until you can only do the best that you can with what you're given. So
I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. Because when I was kind of doing a bit of research, I knew that we were going to talk about this today. I was looking up like idea leaders and opinion leaders in the sector, and I came across, do you remember when we did our first episode, you asked me whose job I would like to do for a day?
Yes.
I found them. So I came across, let me see if I can find his name. Simon, I don't know how to pronounce his surname. Simon Sinek, or Simon Sinek.
Yeah. He's
Rings
the
a bell?
reason, the Why book, no, is him.
I don't know. It sounds like it could be.
Yeah. I think it's Simon Sinek. I'm not sure.
So I came across Simon Sinek, and I watched a TED talk of his that just, I think it was a big part of me getting out of this kind of brain stop. and the things he says are really inspiring. And his main message is that true leadership is purely based on trust. And if you look at examples of real leaders, often it's in situations where people are giving their lives for somebody else, or for a mission, or for an objective. And in that situation, when you ask them why, that's probably where his book comes from.
Yeah.
Their answer is always the same, and it's because I knew they would have done it for me. So if you have trust, and if you feel like your leader is prepared to make sacrifices for you, and have your best intentions in mind, obviously always aligning in a bigger picture, then you're more likely to go to the ends of the earth for that person or for that project. And I think that's a really beautiful message, and something that I really aspire to, is to become this kind of person and this kind of leader, that the people that I manage feel like they can trust me, and feel like I have their best intentions in mind. So I think it's a big thing, being the boss, being the manager of somebody, being an employer. That is somebody's livelihood.
Yeah.
I mean, if I get fired today, I would have a tough time, I'd have to find a new job. It's
it
the
would
race
throw
against
everything
being able
out of
to,
balance in your
exactly.
life.
So it's, even if it isn't war and it isn't your life, it's still a big part in that person's every day, having to pay their bills and everything. So
yeah, exactly.
It's something I would really aspire to, is to become a person in the future when I do have a team to manage, to have that capability and be able to listen to people, but still have the resilience and decision-making power, not power as in the power that I have in the company, but power in myself to stand up for things and have confrontations if I have to bring a project in the right direction. So I've got a couple of things. I actually have a little game. So I have a little game which is called Which Leader Said It?
Oh.
And I have some quotes or examples of sentences that have been said by well-known leaders.
God, I'm going to be so bad at this.
I could ask you to try and guess, but I don't think I'm going to make you do that. So we'll just kind of go through them together and see your reaction.
Starting to go red. Starting to sweat. Already imagining the comments.
Don't worry. We're not going to put you in an awkward situation. It's too vulnerable. So we'll just go through the phrases and then go into who said them. So the first one is, your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. I think you can probably relate to this.
Yeah.
But that was said by Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft. So a big entrepreneur, big leader. The second is, passion is energy. I love this one. Passion is energy. Feel the power that comes from focusing on what excites you. And the person that said this is Oprah.
Nice.
I really relate to that. It's something that we mentioned in the past, but I don't think time is necessarily energy. I think you can spend a lot of time on something and spend either a lot of energy or get energy from it. So if you're working on something that you're passionate about, it's going to give you energy. So I agree that
100%. I mean, I think we've talked about this before. I think you've experienced it as well, of start to do something and you actually like literally forget to eat. And me saying that is like a big thing, because I love my food and I get very hangry. So, but when you start and you're just like, oh, just 5 more minutes, it's fine. And yeah, absolutely. Something that gives you like passion. There's just nothing that's a stronger fuel, I think.
And I mean, what a dream to be able to have a team of people that you're able to inspire and you're able to find their passion in what they're doing for you. Because that's obviously the number one way to get people working their best is if they're passionate and they're interested in what they're
motivated. Absolutely.
So
which going into that, which we won't get into it now, but like with that is the whole thing of having more flexible like office hours and stuff, which comes down to that, so that when people are at the office, they're actually motivated and actually wanting to be there. And as long as they get the job done, it doesn't matter. You don't have to. I mean, we talked about a bit about that. I think it was a previous episode where we were talking about we want to feel like we're not wasting our time. That isn't conducive to feeling motivated or happy or inspired or creative or any of it. So if you can spend 4 hours and get something done, why do you have to be there for 8 hours and 4 of them just be sat there doing nothing?
That's actually super interesting. I have a data fact that I can tell you later, and it's really on that specific subject. So the time you spend working isn't necessarily equal to productivity. More time doesn't necessarily mean higher productivity.
Not at all.
And everybody knows this. Everybody knows this personally. But suddenly when you become a manager and you're like, okay, I'm allowed to get 42 hours or 45 hours or 50 hours out of this person per week. It's what I'm going to get. It doesn't matter, So I think that's a really, really interesting one in how you manage people.
Yeah. But yes, we divulge.
So the next one is people don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it.
Is this Simon Sinek?
It is.
Yeah, because his whole thing about why, which I did at uni, and like it's something I carry a lot in my way of doing things, is that it's not, the big brands out there aren't talking about what they do. They're not even talking about how they do it. They're talking about why they do it. And then after the why, they might tell you how, and then after that, they might tell you what they're actually selling. So like an example would be, I don't know, if we're talking something, I think a big example that Simon Sinek uses, I think, is Apple. And they talk about, the why is, making you feel connected and inspired and creative. And, then how it's like, with amazing photography and, whatever. And then at the end, they'll be like, oh, and this is for an iPhone, by the way.
Yeah.
And then, so you've got people like they're there, and I totally agree that talking about why, that's what people will connect to and be like, I understand that and I want to get behind that too. And I think that's so powerful.
Yeah. And I think that's, it goes for selling a product, but also selling your company and
anything.
And the people would want to work on that mission or on that why with you. And if you get people aligned on the why, it's going to be way easier to get the people aligned on the what.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And maybe they'll find their own what that'll take you to the why.
exactly. Like, what do we want to do? We want to, I don't know, save the world. Like, I don't know. I don't care what you do or how you do it. Just as long as we are all working towards that, it's fine, or whatever it is.
Yeah. And then the last one I have is the best executive is the one who has the sense to pick good men. Sorry, I'm reading this terribly. I'm going to start again. The best executive is the one who has sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done and self-restraint enough to keep from meddling with them while they do it.
I love that.
Isn't this just everything when it comes to management? And from what I hear, I think you're doing a great job in that. So well done.
Thank you. I try. Who said that?
That was Theodore Roosevelt.
That surprised me. I just watched a film that I highly recommend. Highly recommend, and he's kind of important in it. It's called 688. The 688, I think. It's very good. It's very good. I don't know if to tell you what it's about, because when my mum told me what it was about, I was like, I don't know if I want to watch that. No, it's not the kind of film I'm interested in. Just watch it. Very good. But yeah.
So my homework is, what's it called? The
688.
688. That's my homework, and you have to watch The Social Network.
The Social Network.
So I mentioned that I had some market data. Actually talking about the time that people spend at the office or that people spend working. there was actually a...
Oh, this is going to be scary numbers.
No. It's a cool one. So
Okay,
there
good.
was actually a big study done in Iceland between
Yeah, but they're
2015...
perfect over there.
Yeah, they're really good. Actually, consecutive after this study, apparently Spain has been doing it. But anyway, so there was a big study done in Iceland between 2015 and 2019 with 1% of the working population, which is actually quite big. If you think on the scale of a country, Iceland maybe less so because
I was going to say
not that many people, but it was over 2,500 people, and they tested a 4-day workday with no decrease in salary. So people were getting paid the same amount for working 4 days instead of 5.
Okay.
I think it might have been actually 4 days and a half, but the sources generally say 4. And what they found was that productivity either stayed the same or went up. And what I found really interesting was Microsoft, after that, I think it was in 2021, they did the same study with their Japanese office, and they kind of measured more precise numbers, and they found that their productivity jumped by about 40%. And as they were working 1 day less per week, the electricity usage dropped by 23. So they were saving money and having
and getting
more
better
productive
results.
people. Yeah.
I mean, I totally believe that. 1 year of my 4 years at uni, we had in one of the terms, we had a timetable that was Monday and Tuesday, 5 hours each. Then we had Wednesdays off, and then Thursday and Friday.
I remember
5 hours. And oh my God, it made such a difference. Like, you weren't like going into Thursday thinking about the weekend because you just had a day off. Like, it was so much better. It was crazy. Like, when I did that, I was like, why don't we do this? And like, it maybe doesn't have to be the same day. I mean, that's how it makes sense, I guess, in a week where, whatever. But we were doing the same hours, but they were just spread over 4 days instead of 5. And it was everyone just felt so much better. Like, going on Thursday, people were looking forward to it. People were happy to be there. Friday, like, it was just a whole other like feeling. And yeah, I think it's unnatural for us to work 5 days in a row.
I'd love to have you as my manager. I'll look forward to that one day.
Yeah. We'll be our own managers when this takes off.
Exactly. We'll manage each other and manage ourselves.
We will manage.
That's a really good example because, as you say, it's not the norm to do 4-day weekdays, even though it seems obvious. I think one big subject as I come into the working world is realizing that there's a certain standard and there's a certain way that things are done in the business world that promote, overworking, giving it your all,
absolutely
going far and beyond what maybe mentally sustainable is, and
absolutely.
also kind of sacrificing other people on the way. So in business, we reward those that do it better than the others, and those that, stand up for themselves and maybe push others away and get to the top. And this is the business world. It's very based on this kind of thinking. I mean, I won't even go into the kind of masculine side of things and how you have to as a woman, you're maybe expected to have a more masculine energy to get as far, to be as successful in the working world.
That's a whole topic inside of like being a leader. Whole other topic. And I know we're talking about leaders, but yeah, that is like so, yeah. Like, any woman that you see like making it so often is like so masculine, and it's like because that's how they feel they need to. Let's not go into that today, but yeah, it's crazy.
But it's super interesting, and I kind of come over and over to the thought process of, is this just the way that it is? Do we have to go far and beyond what is sustainable for us or what is good for the people? It sounds so good for the people. Good for the people that are working on that project. Do we have to go that little bit further and that little bit kind of unhealthily further to get ahead and to be successful. And if that is the case, if we do have to go to extremes that people are going to be unhappy, and like I often listen to talks of these big leaders, like Microsoft founder, you know, all of these very successful people, the people that we define as successful people. You'll often listen to their talks and they'll say, my priorities weren't in the right place. I now know that I would have preferred to have spent some more time with my family and spent... But is that a sacrifice that you have to take if you want to get to that point of success? Even though they're regretting it, they're successful. So if you want that, if you want the success, do you have to make that sacrifice? It's such an interesting subject. And as a leader and as a manager, obviously you're the one that's making that sacrifice for the people that are working for you. Because if you purely prioritize mental health and space and feeling good, you're only, I mean, if the numbers were purely positive, surely everybody would be doing it. Or are we just not doing it because it's not the normal? Because we're not educated, because we don't have the data?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if that's kind of more where you go. I think from even when you're at school, that's kind of drilled into you. Like there's no like, I don't know, like at least in Spain, as far as we can talk about, I guess, of where we've been to school. I feel like it's similar in other places, but you're rewarded with how well you do in exams that are set, that aren't like personalized in any way. You know, there's that quote by Albert Einstein of like, if a fish were measured his whole life for how he can climb a tree, he'll live his whole life thinking he's useless or something like that. Yeah. And, you know, we are just all tested against these same kind of things, and whoever makes it, and they will then get into the university they want to get into, then, you know, then they will be successful. And if not, then you're just, if you don't fit into the system, you're screwed, and, you know, whatever. And it's not something that's talked about. It's something that like now is kind of more talked about, but at school, you don't have as well as we've said loads of times, we should have subjects that include things like things that we're talking about on this podcast, because nobody does teach you how to manage. For example, there should also be
emotional intelligence. There's
nothing about emotional intelligence. There's the whole thing of, you know, most people who are like book smart aren't emotionally intelligent, and having those conversations around mental health and what to do when you're feeling super anxious about, you know, your exams and all that. There isn't really like any conversation around that. So
I think it's interesting. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that like also kind of from a place of maybe keeping people, like so many people, I think the people that are truly good leaders say things like, it's about trust. People who aren't just want to make people afraid and scared so that they'll comply and just kind of stay in their lane. And there's that, what you said before of like, I am paying this person for 50 hours a week, so I'm going to get 50 hours a week out of them. They suddenly aren't a human. They're just a stepping stone to get to what you want.
Number, yeah.
Yeah. Clients
the bigger an organization gets, the more you're going to feel like that.
Exactly. Clients of ours, you know, if we don't respond, they'll come out with things like, oh, I'm paying you to respond to my emails. I'm like, yeah, not at this time of night on a whatever, you know, but it's like, I'm paying you, so you owe me this, you know, and it's that kind of mentality that it's not like, oh, of course they're not answering, or they have the right not to answer because they are a human who, that you say, has every right to prioritize their mental health or whatever. It's just not, I don't know. It's such a like good like question, and like somewhere that we could stay in and talk about for a long time probably.
But I have come up against like asking myself, can you be a kind and a good leader and still be a very successful person and create a very successful company? And I would like to say, I do think so. And I trust in, we see the results, and we see all of these studies, they keep giving positive results. So if you're a good enough making things happen person to implement these into a real organization and combine that with the production of a product or of a service, or if you're able to combine those two things, being a brilliant leader on the human side of things and have happy employees that are being massively efficient because they are mentally healthy, and also be a good enough leader on the business side of things, then surely you will have a very successful organization. And if that organization has to be making a little bit less money for some reason, no, I think it can be just as successful.
Yeah.
But if it can't be, is it worth it?
No,
If it
is it
isn't,
worth
like,
it?
So yeah, I think I'm a lot more motivated in my career to become a brilliant leader rather than what I'm motivated by making a lot of money or being that definition of successful that is given. But then again, if you want to be remembered, isn't it a lot easier to be remembered as a brilliant leader than as a successful businesswoman?
Yeah.
So many questions.
So many questions. And I think also like so many things coming up. So many things.
Maybe while you bring those things up, I'll give you another little data point.
Oh,
so
yes.
Google did something really cool. I find really cool. They famously allowed employees to spend 20% of their work time on personal passion projects, meaning that their time that they should be in the office or online or working or whatever, they could spend that time working on something that they were interested in. So for us, for example, that could be this podcast or, and that 20% rule, they called it, led to innovations like Gmail and AdSense. So it does, obviously you're always going to tell the success stories.
Yeah.
But opening that possibility to people to be creative and to get that energy, like we said before, what was it? Passion is energy? Passion is energy.
Yeah, passion is
if you
energy.
let people work on something they're passionate about, they're more likely to bring the correct energy to your company. And it's proven.
It's proven. It is. It absolutely is. And something that I've had to learn as well a lot in my own business is that it's not always a balance. You know, we want to do a whole episode about like work-life balance and all that stuff. I think especially when you have your own business, I think this is probably also the same when you don't have your own business and you work for someone, because certain things might keep you up longer, or, you know, you just have more, you're more invested in them for whatever reason. I think, or like you were saying before about how so many of the leaders would say they wish they spent more time with their family, whatever. I think there are times and places, like there's this like thing with relationships and how they say that it has to be 50-50, but sometimes you're human and for whatever reason you might both be at 20% and you can't make 100, and you've got to do what you've got to do to just get through. And then other days you'll both be at 80% or 90%, you know, and sometimes you might be at 30 and someone else is at 70 and you can, you know, whatever. And I think that in the work world, it's the same, that you can't expect to always be like 50% of your time happy at work and then the other 50% happy in your personal life, and that'll make everything be perfect. Sometimes work might be going terrible. Sometimes life might be going terrible. Sometimes you have to spend more time on work, less time on personal. Sometimes you can do it the other way around. And that's where there's like an overall balance. But I think we can be really hard on ourselves if we do have weeks where, I mean, I working for myself will have weeks where I work, you know, 10-hour days and don't see anyone, friends, family, anybody. But it's just, and most of the time it's not even because there's someone holding a gun to my head saying you've got to do this or you'll go bankrupt, because that's not the case. It's just because I'm passionate about it, I'm excited about it, and things need to get done in order to be able to move forward and be more successful. But then it means that other weeks I can work 2 hours a day, you know, for 5 days in a row, and it's fine as well. And it's, I don't know, I feel like it isn't realistic to be like every week we have to work the same amount, because I don't know, how do you then also, when you are talking big scale and you have X amount of employees, you can't be like, okay, well, everyone's going to decide when they're going to do extra hours one week, less hours another week. I mean, a company that from here in Malaga, they did have a system where you had to work X amount of hours in a week, but you could, with limits, arrange that however you wanted. You know, if on Monday you want to take on extra hours, so you could take some off your Friday or whatever, that was fine. And I think that's a good way of doing it. Also because just things like if you need to take a day off work to have to go to, I don't know, take your car to the inspection because that has to be done during working hours. Like, I don't know. I think it's good to be able to just be able to adapt always. I think it makes life easier, but I don't know. I feel like there is that pressure, especially now when we are more aware of things like mental health, of if you aren't taking care of your mental health and you're not having maybe that work-life balance, you can be really hard on yourself and be like, oh, I should be looking after myself more. And it can almost be like an extra added layer of stress. I don't know.
That's
I don't know. It's a whole can of worms.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many subjects here that we could go into and chat about for hours.
And we will,
and
yeah.
There's a kind of list of very specific subjects like flexible time, like flexible hours, remote working, in office, out of office, setting goals or setting tasks. All of these subjects I've put kind of for a future episode. So in a couple of episodes, we'll go into office dynamics. And when I say office, I don't mean like a room where people are working. It's just any
workplace dynamics,
online or offline, where people are getting a job done. All of the dynamics that can go on in there, and we'll go into detail in that one. So the idea here is to talk specifically about management. And I think one thing that when you look up or when you speak about management, people often mention the different types of management. So a manager can be more authoritarian, which is more like I'm the boss and I tell you what to do. Or a manager can be the kind of person that'll just give out tasks. Or so I found a graph. Maybe we could put it up on the screen.
Yeah.
Maybe. Oh, I could share my screen. Trying something new here, guys.
It's about to get real fancy.
About to get real fancy if I can figure out how it works. Okay. So this is a graph about leadership and different types of leadership. And originally I thought that this was mainly about the style of leadership that different leaders have. But I've come to realize that it can be that, but it can also, and I think it's a lot nicer way to look at it, is if you are a manager of a group of people, of your employees or of whoever you're in charge of, it can also depend on who you're managing. You need a different style because some people are very independent and they can get things done and they're happy doing that. And some people are going to be they're going to want some more support and they're going to want some more check-ins and everything. So I would rather look at it like that. So this is the different styles of leadership that people can take depending on what a certain employee or what a certain situation has. So we have two axes. We have I'm going to go all scientific on you. So we have the y-axis, so the vertical axis, which shows incremental amounts of supportive behavior. So how much support you give that person. And then on the x-axis, we have directive behavior. So more directive, less directive, starting at the low. So if we're talking low directive behavior and low supportive behavior, so you're supporting very little, you're directing very little, that's what we call delegating. So as a manager, you're going to delegate tasks to somebody and you're going to trust them that they'll get it done. And then you check in with them at the end of the project. Did you get it done, basically? And that'll work if people are very independent, maybe have a lot of experience, so they don't necessarily want you meddling in how they're doing things. So that's the first style of leadership. Then if we go up in supportive behavior but stay quite low in directive behavior, you have the supporting leadership. So this is, obviously the name says it all. You're not very directive, so you're not giving you're maybe not telling people how to do something or what to do exactly, but you're supporting them in what they're doing, and maybe they're looking to you for your experience or your opinion, influence, exactly, guidance, but without telling them too much what to do.
Yeah.
And then if you stay at high supportive behavior and you go up in directive behavior, it's what we call a coaching leadership style. So you're egging them on, you're giving them challenges, you're giving them things to work on, but you're still being very supportive about it. So that's I think that's a really nice, obviously it depends on the employee, but I think that's a really nice place to position yourself. You're giving direction, but you're supporting them through it. So you're coaching them to be better, to be more efficient, to be high.
Yeah.
And then the last leadership style, this is just one example. There are many people that talk about 6 different leadership styles, but this is kind of simplifies it to these 2 axes, I think is a really nice way to put it. And then if we go to high directive behavior, but very low supportive behavior, that's the directing leadership. So
into the do as you're told section.
Yeah, basically. It's what we would call authoritarian managing. So you're telling people what to do without really supporting them too much through it.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of an overview of the different leadership styles that have been studied and have been, the idea leaders, opinion leaders is what they present in general.
Love a good graph.
That was I quite like it. I think it's very visual. And I thought it was nice to go into a bit of specifics in case people are new and didn't know the different leadership styles there could be.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think it can also depend at like different stages in a project, even with
Absolutely.
the same person.
It all depends.
It all depends. It really does.
Cool. Well, maybe I did prepare one last little thing. I'm not going to go through all of them because it's already quite long. But the idea, it's called a situational speed run. So I'm going to put you in a situation.
Okay.
And I would like you to talk me through, relatively briefly, how you would deal with that situation.
Yeah.
So your star team member, maybe your only employee, has been visibly stressed and missing deadlines.
Right.
But they won't admit they're overwhelmed. How do you handle this?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, so if they're not wanting to admit it or open up, I would maybe suggest, so first of all, it would just be like a conversation where I would want to ask them what it's like from their perspective, if they have any insight into what's happening. I think I would also want to kind of discuss, is there anything I can do? Is there anything that I can change in what I've been doing? Is there any way that I can help? Is there any way that I can make things clearer, easier, anything for them? And I think I would probably try and, if they're not wanting to talk about why this might be happening, take the focus off of them and maybe talk about kind of the tasks as, like, I don't know, rather than making it about like, why aren't you getting this done? Be like, how can we come up with solutions to get these things done? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's perfect. Yeah. And do you think you would ever get to a point where you would maybe force somebody to take some time off?
I think if they weren't wanting to open up and talk to me about it and things weren't improving, I would have to suggest, that either they take some time off or we maybe find a way, I feel like if it were to go on for a long period of time, then I would start to worry that it isn't just something that's going on with them, that's something that maybe I need to, work on, and something that I might not be doing properly or taking on well. And maybe, suggest that I think I would ask them how they would feel about taking some time off and kind of take it from there. I feel like it would maybe be a good way for them to assess, because maybe if they're overwhelmed, it could be for 1,000 reasons, but if it is their personal life is absolutely fine and it is just because of work, they might come back and be like, this just isn't for me. I just wasn't happy. And in that case, I'd rather they weren't You don't want to be forcing anybody,
of
you
course.
know. So if they take some time off and then suddenly they're like the happiest person, or maybe then because they might not be admitting it because they don't realize and they're just like stuck in a no, I'm fine. I'm here. I've got to do what I've got to do. So maybe that would be a solution if it didn't improve and we tried to change tactics and it was just still happening. Maybe it would be the only way. I don't know, but yeah, it would be a bit harsh.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess you can offer it for it to be paid leave, you know.
Yeah.
Take,
you
take 2 weeks, paid leave, see how you feel, you know, and see how you come back. But yeah, still hard.
Yeah, I was reading up on different situations of leaders, and I found a story that I really liked, and there was a company that in the recession in 2008 had a really hard time, and their sales went down like 40% or something crazy. And they had a lot of employees, and they got to the point where they were going to have to cut budgets. So they got together, the decision makers got together in the room, and the leader, I would say manager, but definitely leader traits, came to the decision that they weren't going to lay off anybody, but they would ask everybody or force everybody to take, I think over the course of a year, 4 weeks of non-paid leave. So everybody would suffer per se a little, but nobody would suffer a lot. And what happened was, because they had put these employees in a situation where they felt cared for and they felt looked after, they started going the extra mile for the company and for each other. So if somebody could only afford to take off 1 week rather than 4, then maybe a few others would take off 5 weeks instead of 4. And I just think it just shows that if at the end of the day, like you said maybe in the last episode, we are humans, and when we go back in time, we needed each other to survive. So if we feel looked after and we feel that we can trust the people around us, we're going to start helping each other.
We always act our best from a safe place. If we feel safe is when we are the most, you know, we are willing to take risks. Our performance is the best overall when we feel safe. And that obviously feeling like the person, I mean, at the end of the day, your livelihood is in their hands because they can decide to fire you any moment. Feeling like they're in your corner, then, you know, what's better? How can you feel more safe than that in your workplace? Yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think a big conclusion out of what I think defines a good manager is take the time to choose the right people for your team. And then once you've made that decision, trust them. And then if there are issues, then you'll come up against them, but trust them. You can't do a little middle ground thing where you kind of trust them, but you keep checking on them, and then it gets overwhelming. And you've got to, take the time you need to find the employees,
the right people.
And once you found them, trust that decision and, go to the end. There was another company that I heard offered lifetime employment. So you could never get fired. And because people felt so safe, they were really efficient and they worked really well for the company because they felt like,
Yeah.
This is all I wanted to discuss today. We could go on for hours.
We really
could. We'll go into office dynamics and these specifics about timetables and things like this in a future episode. But yeah, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been very therapeutic for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you just, like we said probably in our trailer, we're all just trying to figure it out. We don't know. I think even when you ask, the people who made it, and their biggest fear is that someone will find out that they have no idea what they're doing, because everyone's just kind of trying to figure it out as they go. There's no manual for this. You can ask, you can have your what's it called, like the person that you go to for guidance, mentor. You can have mentors, you can have people who you ask questions and advice, but at the end of the day, it's down to you, and with experience you can go making more informed decisions and hoping that it goes okay.
Yeah, and I think that's like two of the main things that I've realized coming into the working world is, one, nobody really knows what they're doing. We're all just improvising. And two, there are no real rules. As long as you're doing things legally, There are no rules, okay? You can do things how you want them.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll either have a positive or a negative outcome. But there are no rules of how you have to do things.
Mm-hmm.
There are laws that protect people. So
The people.
The laws.
Yeah.
But
we're not condoning that. If you do anything illegal, don't come for us.
This is not our
Especially
advice.
not Saoirse.
So yeah.
She is a good law-abiding citizen.
And that brings this episode to an end. What can we look forward to next week? I believe that we will be talking about interviews.
Yes.
So hiring and getting
You're
hired.
right.
So it really goes in, winds in nicely to the end of this, to the conclusion of this episode, which wasn't on purpose. I'm not that good at podcasting yet.
No, not quite yet. But yeah, I'm very excited to talk about that. I think there's a lot to uncover there. And yeah, we will be diving into the interview world. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for listening.
As always, if you have any questions, stories, anything, we would love to hear them and talk about them and discuss them. That is our dream for this, to be able to come up with a little collective to talk about anything and everything. So yeah,
What's up?
thank you and see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.